Welcome to the Pony Pundits for Friday, July 17th. I'm your host, Marco D'Angelo, joined by my partner in crime. You know him as Sig. You can follow him on Twitter at Sig Las Vegas. And of course, AKA The Shirt, AKA Mr. Pick 4. And speaking of Pick 4s, Sig, we got to open the show. We both nailed the Pick 4 last week. You did it on a $54 ticket. I did it on a $60 ticket and brought back $344. You played both of our tickets. That's $688 for tuning in and watching us for an hour. Oh, wait, last week we had problems. Our beloved producer north of the border had some issues, and we didn't get the show out live. But we did tweet the tickets out for everybody to play.
Hey, I'm still listening.
I know, and that's why I said it. That is our beloved producer, Mr. Prez. You know him as. How you doing, Prez?
Dude, I can't wait to go to the pool while you guys do the Pony Pundits.
You know what? As soon as I'm done with the Pony Pundits, I'll be in the pool. So I feel you. Okay,
but I'll be listening because I love Sig.
Yeah. Okay. Don't you have somewhere to be? All right, Sig. Let's get it off. Before we start the show, a lot of news and notes this week, Sig. But I want to talk about, just remind everybody, we got 2 shows every day here at Wager Talk, weekdays, Monday through Friday. You can listen to a show, or listen and watch. 12 noon Eastern, 3 p.m. Eastern, every day, Monday through Friday, weekdays. And, of course, we're here every Friday at 3 o'clock. Also, guys, sports are starting next week. We got baseball on July 23rd. We'll be back in action, Sig. I can actually bet things other than horses. Not that I don't mind betting horses. We know that I bet horses whether sports are running or not, but we got real sports again starting next week. And first Wednesday in August is the planned return to the Wager Talk studios. We'll be taping some live shows from the studio as we prepare for the football season. And of course, my favorite show, next to the Pony Pundits, obviously, is Bet On It. You can, we'll be bringing that back as well, Sig. So exciting times here at Wager Talk, but you've got a plethora of news and notes for us this week. Take it away.
I've got lots to talk about, Marco. First, guys, that Pick 4 ticket last week paid $334, not $344. So,
sorry.
Marco,
I can't even read.
$20 on the 2 tickets didn't happen.
Yeah, I can't even read my own notes. I actually have $334 written down. Duh.
Unlike our Wager Talk founders, Marco and the Prez, I don't have a pool to go to after the show. Maybe I'll get to go run through the sprinkler.
Hey, you know what, Sig? You know you got an open invitation out here. You know, there's nothing else happening in Pittsburgh. You should be out here poolside. Hunkered down in Casa D'Angelo. You see where I handicap from. I know you like handicapping out on the back porch by the pool. I know you like the other place better whenever you had the balcony on the 18th floor looking out there as well.
Nothing better than a Vegas night and a form in my hand. But guys, on to the news here. A couple big stories this week. First, we talk about them every week, it seems. The Oaklawn stewards got back the second sample on the Baffert horses from Arkansas Derby Day. Both did come back positive. They gave a 15-day suspension to Bob Baffert and disqualified both Charlatan, who won one division of the Arkansas Derby, and Gamine, who won an allowance that day on the card. Baffert is appealing the decision, and if you guys follow Twitter at all this week, or maybe DRF or Horse Racing Nation, you'll see that there was an attorney for Baffert came out with a reason for why both horses tested positive. It seems a little fishy to me, and I think that's some other people as well, but we'll wait and see how this appeal turns out. I'm sure this won't be the last we hear of this. Charlatan's already off the Derby trail because of the injury, which maybe that lidocaine was hiding on Arkansas Derby Day. But he could be the disqualification, if it is upheld, would mean Basin won that division of the Arkansas Derby and would get those Derby points, which were 100 points for each division that day.
Sig, let me just jump in and just say, I love Bob Baffert. Who doesn't? I mean, he's good for the sport. Very, he never refuses an interview. He's there front and center, and basically he's probably the most recognizable face of, racing today. But let me just say, bullshit, okay, with the excuse or reason of why he said how the lidocaine showed up in his both horses' samples. I'm sorry, okay? Now, when we first talked about it, he said somebody, taking care of the horse, and then later it's been said that it's assistant trainer Jimmy Barnes, took the horses to the paddock, and that would be the person that would put the tongue ties on. But I'm sorry, you're not going to have transmission from wearing a salon pause patch transfer through your body, through your fingertips and sweat as you are putting on a tongue tie on a horse. I'm sorry. Plus the fact, I don't remember what race numbers those were. But, if they were back to back, you're still going to be the way they run on big race days, at least 35 minutes between races. The number of races between there, I would be curious. And if I was a defense attorney trying to rebuttal his thing, I would look at what the actual readings were on the individual horses, because they should not be the same. If it was through the salon pause patch, because the patch from the time you place it on till the time you take it off, it's going to diminish. So the readings would not be the same. If those readings were exactly the same, you're screwed, dude. Don't even try to bark that, that one, because that would have been administered. I'm sorry. I just had to rebut his story. You can come up with something better, okay? And at the bottom line, even if that is what happened, there is a clause that it doesn't, it's trainer responsibility. Even though it wasn't him, it's trainer responsibility. So he's not going to win an appeal, in my opinion.
All right, we'll wait and see how that turns out. And guys, the show is not brought to you by Salon Pause, but they are interested in sponsoring us. Please contact the home office.
I doubt that they will be wanting to sponsor us. Or at least that shows how good it works, I guess, huh?
All right, guys. Del Mar should be kicking off their second week of racing here in about an hour and a half. Unfortunately, racing this weekend has been canceled at Del Mar after 15 jockeys in the colony tested positive for COVID-19. The jockeys who tested positive are being quarantined for the next 10 days, and then will be retested. Del Mar hopes to resume racing next Friday, the 24th. And going forward, only jockeys that are based in California will be permitted to ride at Del Mar the remainder of this meet. In a similar move, the NYRA announced this week that any jockeys that ride at Saratoga and leave the Saratoga colony cannot return to Saratoga during the meet. It will be interesting, actually, for the last weekend at Saratoga, because that's the same weekend as the Kentucky Derby. So a lot of those riders that were riding at Churchill for Derby weekend will not be there for closing weekend at Saratoga.
Let me jump in 1 minute on the Del Mar. They have announced, because there were some big stake races this week. Most importantly, the return of maximum security in the Bob Baffert barn, and they have decided to add a racing day. They're adding July 27th to their schedule. So we'll have Monday racing next week if everything resumes as planned. They'll have a 4-day weekend instead of a 3-day weekend. In that Monday card, they're adding races. And the other stakes that got canceled this week, they're moving them forward. One of the stakes was the $65,000 Daisy Cutter handicap. That is going to be moved to the July 24th card. The $65,000 Smiling Tiger Stakes, these are both small stakes, they're moving to July 25th. But we do have two big stakes. They're both grade twos. The $150,000 San Diego handicap, which was the featured race, they are going to July 25th. And then the $200,000 Eddie Reed Stakes, actually a bigger purse, but grade two going to July 26th. So nice move by them to come back and get the races run, and with those two bigger stakes, only pushing it back a week is not going to be a big problem for those horses, because obviously thoroughbreds don't, run on a weekly basis like harness racing. So it's not going to be a conflict in schedule, but it might make them a little short on their next destination that they might have had scheduled or at least planned to go to after this, cutting, a week short or adding the week before this race is run.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm looking forward to Maximum Security's debut for the Baffert Barn, going from one druggy trainer to maybe another.
We're appealing. Tongue tie, buddy. Tongue tie.
All right, guys. I haven't had a horse for you guys to watch in a while, but Todd Pletcher's debuting a 2-year-old tomorrow at Saratoga in the first race. Something to keep an eye on. Mo Mischief has had some very nice workouts over the Saratoga surface. You're probably not going to get a whole lot of value in him, but there is actually another horse in the field that's very interesting. So keep an eye out. Pletcher's had a nice year with his 2-year-olds, winning 44% of the time on debut this year. So keep an eye on Mo Mischief tomorrow, race 1 at Saratoga.
Hey, Sig, 44%. Let's just wrap ourselves around it. Most people would be happy if they were hitting the board 44% of the time with 2-year-olds, because, it's a learning process. You don't know what you got. He's winning almost half of his races. 44% is absolutely insane. And, it's funny, in the spring we were talking about, where's Todd Pletcher? He was quiet the first part of 2020. He's making up for it in a big way. And when you do it with 2-year-olds, that sets you up for a big 3-year-old campaign next year.
Right. Normally he's the king of the Gulfstream Championship meet over the winter, and his name wasn't called a whole lot this past winter, or less than it normally has been. So he's still doing it, though. Still knows how to get those 2-year-olds ready. Finally, guys, this weekend's another opportunity to get in the Kentucky Derby Futures wager. The polls opened approximately 3 hours ago, and they'll be open through 6 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Tiz DeLaw is your expected favorite right now, and 6 new entries have been added to the futures pool, including Ohio Derby winner Dean Martini, Indiana Derby winner Shared Sense, and Indiana Derby runner-up Major Fed. There's also an option in this poll for an Oaks Derby double wager. If I was a betting man, I would lean toward a Swiss Skydiver and Honor AP.
Yeah, that's really sticking your neck out there, buddy, on that one, especially with us. Swiss Skydiver. Just to throw in, horses to watch, and I was texting back and forth with you, the Indiana Derby runner-up, Major Fed. I told you he is Tacitus 2.0 or 1A entry. This horse finds more road trouble in races than I have ever seen. And unfortunately for me, I've bet him a couple times when he run into those road troubles. So he is definitely on my virtual stable of horses to watch. Now, granted, if he shows up next race in the Kentucky Derby, he's going to be definitely in against, the best. But if he shows up somewhere else, this horse gets a clean trip one time. We saw what Tacitus finally did. I think Major Fed is still sitting on a big race in the right spot.
And it took Tacitus to get to his 4-year-old season to get that clean race. So.
If Major Fed goes to a race like he went in the Indiana Derby, that's, it's a good race, but it's not the elite 3-year-old race. If he dodges the elite 3-year-olds and goes to just that second tier, I was about to say like a West Virginia Derby or a Pennsylvania Derby. No West Virginia Derby this year. They announced this week, not that, Mountaineer is big on anybody's radar, but that is the one race every year, that is their big day, and they get that second tier of 3-year-olds, and it's a good race. They've canceled it this year due to they really haven't said, but bottom line, I think it's just because the casino hasn't generated the money that it normally would and everything else because of the shutdowns. I just don't think that they can afford to put that race on this year. My opinion.
Agree completely with you, Marco, on that one.
In Mountaineer, while we're talking, it's not on your news and notes, but just want to throw it out there. There's a lot of buzz on Twitter with Mountaineer and things that, happen. And people get upset with horses at post time might be 3-1, 5-2, and then after the gate breaks and the final odds recycle, that horse that was 5-2 goes off at 8-5, and bettors, cry about that. There's two things, and I answered somebody on Twitter about it. One thing that'll never change in horse racing from the start, owners and people associated with, the barn and such, they're never betting until the final blinks of the tote board, okay? Because it is pari-mutuel wagering. It's not locking in a price like when you bet sports. A game, you could bet it at 3 and the game might close at 4.5, but you got 3. You did your work, you got the better number earlier in the week. Pari-mutuel wagering, those odds change all the way to the end, and you're betting against everybody else. So when that late money comes in, it is going to shift the odds. But there is a practice going on early on that affects the odds too. And this is something that can be dealt with. People will bet early, maybe sometimes syndicates will throw some money early in a pool, bet a horse to win, just to get the odds to come down. And then the public, we in sports, we call them steam chasers. They see a horse open up. Oh, well, why is this horse taking action? He's 8-1 on the morning line or 10-1, and he opens the board up at 5-2. So then they start jumping on the horse thinking he's live. And what some of these syndicates are doing are they're canceling their ticket later. So it pulls that money back out of the pool, and that shifts the odds too. But for most of the time, it's a deflection to where the sharp money is until the late money comes in. So that's why those odds sometimes jump dramatically. Now, you can't stop late money, but you can stop the cancellation of tickets and go back to the old school. And even more, and this is why it's more prevalent, old school, your ticket, you leave the window. Once you leave the window, you should not be allowed to change a ticket. Okay? That's it. You made your bet, you changed the ticket, scratch, and then usually they give you time to readjust your tickets in case that was a key horse or something. But online, you can cancel bets. And I think what they should do with all the online is simply put a 1-minute counter on the timestamp. All tickets are time stamped. From the time you make a bet online, if you realize you made a mistake, you should have 60 seconds to fix it. Not come back a minute before post and cancel your bet. That would end that practice. And that's my tip. And it's very simple, easy way to handle it. And I think if they do that, it would be a big plus for the bettors, and it'd be less whining on Twitter whenever the odds crash at post time.
Well, first, Marco, there's never going to be less whining on Twitter because everybody has a voice now, and they think they're actually being heard, but they're not. But I could do a whole show on just my thoughts and my feelings on why we need a National Horse Racing Commission. It's never going to happen because all these tracks have their own little business models and they're making their own little bits of money. But, I mean, you want to buy a stock in the market, you want to buy an option, you want to buy a future. There's organizations that go out there and run and supervise all these. I worked in the investment field for over 20 years. I had to take FINRA testing, NASDAQ testing, SIPC. Everything's covered. Everything's regulated. There's no overseeing agency for horse racing right now, and there needs to be. Situations like the Bob Baffert situation shouldn't be handled by Oaklawn Park. It should be handled by a national horse playing registry or commission or something. And until you get like Twin Spires and the Stronach Group and these other groups together and say, okay, we're going to take a little bit of that money that's going into the takeout and put it in and fund some kind of National Horse Racing Commission and have a National Horse Racing Commissioner that can oversee and make rulings on these type of things, it's going to keep happening. And you're going to keep having situations like Mountaineer and keep having situations like different trainers being punished for drug violations at one track, but then just moving to a track or transferring trainers, the name of the trainer, to their wife or a brother or a child. It's going to keep happening, and it's not going to encourage and bring new people into this sport.
Absolutely, Sig. Big weekend this weekend. Monmouth Park has their signature race, the Haskell going for $1 million. And as you told us last week on News and Notes, there's a side note to the Haskell this year with they're putting up some money if you win the Haskell, the Derby, and what else?
The Breeders' Cup Classic, $1 million bonus. If the same horse wins the Haskell, the Kentucky Derby, and the Breeders' Cup Classic, an extra $1 million bonus from Monmouth Park.
Good luck with that. I mean, it's a great promotion. Good luck with winning all three of those, simply because the Breeders' Cup is going to be so much tougher this year. Because let's just say, for an example, the favorite of the Derby right now. Now, he's not in the Haskell, so he doesn't have an opportunity for this. But Tiz the Law was on schedule from the start. He raced, the prep races that you would have always raced with the Derby on the normal day. Now, because of everything that happened in the Derby being pushed back, this horse has to stay on the campaign trail longer to get to September. And that is already going to be, a long, campaign. Now, does that horse stick around and race in the Breeders' Cup? Because a lot of times after the Triple Crown races, which the last one is the first Saturday in June, we see those horses take a couple months off to, rejuvenate them, refresh them. And then, you might see somebody surface later in the summer at the Travers or such, and then be ready for the fall stakes. I just don't see horses going all the way to the Breeders' Cup, even though it's a big race and big money and prestige. They're going to try to get there. I just don't think they can stay sharp till then. And that's going to make for good racing then, because, it'll be a different handicap for us. We'll be looking for that now horse that's fresh.
Definitely. And then another thing to think about, too, is the Haskell's 3-year-olds, the Kentucky Derby's 3-year-olds. When you get to the Breeders' Cup Classic, it's 3-year-olds and up. So you could you're going to be facing older, more experienced horses. You could see a Maximum Security in there, a Tacitus who just won a few weeks back. Going to be a much tougher competition for a 3-year-old to jump right into the Breeders' Cup Classic from the Preakness and the Kentucky Derby in September and October, right into Keeneland the first weekend in November.
All right. And speaking of the Haskell, let's just head into the Haskell. Sig, before we start that, we'll have the pick 4 up next. This week, the last few weeks, we've been doing the race of the day has been part of the pick 4, but we got to do pick 4 at Saratoga. Come on. We got to go to the spa. And, I know you had your spa day yesterday, the opening day. And, I sent out the picture of you getting ready for it on Twitter and everything. Let's start with the Haskell. And I know you're going to have big coverage of Saratoga as you every day. I'm on the bench this weekend, no Del Mar, but never fear. I'm going to be covering races from around the country. So I'm going to have some races from Saratoga, going to have the Haskell. First time ever, going to actually release a harness race as well on my card. The Meadowlands Paces this week, and so some good races from the Meadowlands. So that'll be Saturday night action. So I'll have you covered for nonstop. You'll be able to have action from everywhere, and that'll be my program this week. So one card, it'll be on Saturday, but it'll be a doozy. Speaking of a doozy, not a big field for the Haskell, but it's a good race. And let's start with number 1. 7 horses going for $1 million, Sig. That's what every owner dreams of. And this is Dr. Post, number 1. Big race in his last race. Beautiful effort in the Belmont. Ran second to the horse we were talking about, Tiz the Law, who, right there is everybody's top choice or second choice for the Kentucky Derby. Dr. Post, I said it last time, I'll say it again. This horse now has only got 4 lifetime starts. He has that license to improve. Only 4 starts. And let me mention, from those 4 starts, he had 1 start last year, and that was in July. And, just an average race, finished 4th. But ever since then, it's been win, second. And from 4 starts back till now, he's dramatically jumped his speed figure in each race. So definitely on the improve. Definitely has that license for the big jump with only 4 starts. The one thing I'm going to point out, and the big test was last time we said, okay, that's fine, but who is he beating? I remember you saying that, and I agreed with you. Yeah, he hasn't. The test was, can he handle, that big jump into the grade 1? And he beat everybody in the race except the Kentucky Derby favorite. I will say this much. If you see this horse on the track, he's a big horse. I know all horses are pretty big, but this guy, he's big. He has that long stride. Belmont's perfect for him because they have those big sweeping turns. And because the race wasn't a mile and a half, he only had to deal with 1 turn. He's going to have 2 turns on Saturday, and they're not the big sweeping turns that Belmont is. So although I still expect him to race good, I don't expect him to be as good as he was on the Belmont surface. What are your thoughts on Dr. Post?
Dr. Post, I mean, he looked very good closing into that Belmont Stakes field. He did come out, like you said, runner-up to Tiz the Law, who is your Kentucky Derby favorite right now. I think this comes down, this is really going to be a 3-horse race, and to me it's actually a 2-horse race. Dr. Post needs a fast early pace to close into, and I don't see that developing here unless they've worked on him with rating. He likes to lay back and then make that closing kick here. I don't think he's going to see those tiring horses, and I think looking at the next horse we're going to talk about, I think Authentic is going to really sit on a really nice trip in this race. I see Dr. Post trying to close on him, but I don't think Authentic's going to be tiring out coming down the stretch here.
Yeah, and let's segue right into Dr. Post, by the way, 5-2 on the morning line. The odds-on favor is number 2, Authentic, at 4-5. He did finish second in his last race. It was the Santa Anita Derby. And, he was the odds-on favorite there, and that's when we had the coming out party of Honor AP. And what a race that Honor AP had. I mean, that he pulled away and ran away from Authentic. In Authentic's defense, it was a 7-horse field. And if you remember in that race, Authentic, the initial jump out of the gate, he was the last one out of the gate. And then Drayden Van Dyke had to rush him up into the pack to get into position where he wanted to be, and then he was second throughout from there, and then until Honor AP made his big move. He's Drayden Van Dyke's on this time. 2 things: yes, he's got COVID, but before he got COVID, but might be right. Of Baffert and Smith is, and when those 2 hook up outside of the state of California, the numbers are even more impressive when those 2 team up in a big race when they got a ship to it. I think, as you said, Authentic is going to be the horse on the lead, and I think because everybody respects him, nobody's going to push him. They're going to want to get that 2, maybe have that second trip, but they're not going to want to run up and run with him. So I think Authentic's going to get soft fractions in this race simply because nobody wants to be the sacrificial lamb in this race, and that it will make it tougher for the horses coming from behind and should make it easier for him setting the pace. What do you say? Well,
guys, first, if I repeat anything Marco said, I had some choppy audio during his discussion of Authentic there, so I apologize in advance. If you guys are a normal or regular watcher of this show, you'll remember Marco and I got into it a few weeks back regarding another Bob Baffert trainee, Improbable. We're talking about the Hollywood Gold Cup at Santa Anita back in June, and I was against Improbable on that day. I didn't think he had the stamina for the race. Marco was all over Improbable, and in that case, Marco was right, and I don't say that often. But guys, if you look at
not publicly.
If you look at the works that Bob Baffert's put in with Authentic here since the Santa Anita Derby, he's doing the same thing with Authentic that he did with Improbable back then. You saw two 4 furlong works followed by a really fast 6 furlong work, and then he followed out with an 8 furlong work. He is building the stamina up in this horse, and Authentic's going to be ready for you guys on Saturday. He's my top play on probably for the day. I think he comes in. I think you're going to see a cold 2-1. Exacta here, possibly 2-7, because when we get to NY traffic, I got a couple of opinions there, but I think this is Authentic's race to lose on Saturday.
All right. An interesting horse in the 3-hole, Jesus Team. And hey, who doesn't want to be on Jesus's team? Come on. And this is a spot where when I first looked at it, I said, what in the world is this horse doing in here? I mean, this is a horse that you go down, except for winning his, or racing in maiden special weight. This horse has been in maiden claimers for $50K. And now he's in the Haskell for $1 million. Come on. But with that said, the horse is improving every start. And his last race was his toughest race to date. And he put up a big speed figure in that race. Now, is he on par with any of these horses class-wise? Not yet. But we did say that about Dr. Post in the Belmont. This is a horse that can hit the bottom of the ticket, I think, at a price. And I'm not going to throw him out because of his back history. He is improving. The speed figures are getting better every race. In the last 2 were very good. I'm just not, I can't put him on top. I'm not calling for the upset, but do not throw this horse completely out.
First, Mark, are we sure this is Jesus' team or not Jesus's team?
Well, with tomato, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. We can go on and on. Potato.
Guys, this horse is coming in off an impressive runner-up finish to Sol Volante in an allowance race at Gulfstream last month. What made that race interesting was that it included a bunch of horses that were on the Derby Trail. In addition to Sol Volante, who won that race, Chivalry, who we saw a few weeks back, and then Ete Indian were also in that race. So finishing runner-up in that race, he was able to beat some horses that felt that they were Derby quality. It did take this horse 5 tries to break his maiden. He finally had to drop to the maiden claimant ranks to do that. The speed numbers have really improved since Jose Tiangelo took over the training. I would say, like Marcus said, use him on the bottom of your exotics. He's not a win candidate, in my opinion, though, without a huge step forward.
And just to throw out there, just because a horse raced in a claimer doesn't mean that the horse can't go on to bigger and better things. Remember, the horse that won the Derby last year, then disqualified, actually started his career in claimers. But then he found the juice, and, well, that was a different story. But if you also remember a horse way back when, I'll be dating myself, but Lucas had the horse, I think was the trainer on it. But remember Charismatic? That horse raced in a claimer as well. And, that horse was on the Triple Crown trail as well. And so don't totally throw a horse out. And sometimes that win, like as you said, you had to get into the maiden claimer and so forth. That win sometimes does spark the light bulb. And fortunately, I haven't met a horse yet that knows how to read the racing form. So he doesn't know that he beat condition claimers. We used to always joke, if I had a horse that wasn't that good, and we dropped him in class, put him in a cheap claimer, and I says, he can't read the form. He doesn't know what I think of him. So, he just goes out there and has a good race. And sometimes it just gives the horse confidence to move forward. And that's what we're seeing.
Maybe a horse can't read the racing form, but I know in some of the sports books I've been in betting horses, there are a lot of asses that do. Guys, the 4 horses in here. Ancient Warriors, 20-1 on your morning line. You got Trevor McCarthy in the irons for trainer Jerry Hollendorfer. This horse can't win an allowance race at Oaklawn. He's not winning the premier event of the Monmouth Summer Racing Meet against legitimate Derby horses. While Jerry Hollendorfer has a 24% win percentage and 52% of the time his horses are in the money when he enters him in a stakes race, this horse just doesn't belong in this field. What do you think, Marco?
I agree with you 100%. He has a better chance than the next horse we're going to talk about. If I could get a match race, the matchups, I would definitely take the 4 over the 5, because Fame to Famous ain't going to get famous in this one on Saturday. Let me tell you, I have no idea why this horse is entered in this race. There's nothing good that I can say about this horse. The trainer on this horse in the last 30 days has only had 8 starters. 0 wins out of 8 starts. And of those 8 starters, only 12% have even hit the board. Come on. That's one horse hit the board out of the 8. This guy, I don't know why he's in this race. I can't do it. And if I've missed something, please tell me.
Well, first, my note here on Fame the Famous is, can I just copy what I just said about Agent Warrior? But Mark, I'll tell you why these horses are in the field. 4th place, 50,000 and 10 Derby points. 5th place, 30,000. I'm sorry. Yeah, 30,000 to 5th and 12,500 to 6th. These horses are here to pick up paychecks. Somebody's got to finish 4th, somebody has to finish 5th, and somebody's got to finish 6th. Even for 6th place, I have a 7-horse field, 12,500. Not a bad payday for 2 minutes.
Not bad at all. And speaking of long shots, let's go to the next one. The number 6 horse. What is the correct pronunciation of this horse, Sig?
I believe this is Lubda.
Lubda?
Lubda.
I don't Lubda or Lebda or anything of it. What do you think?
This is the kind of horse that makes his money connections, or makes his connections money. But you're not going to see him win a big stake race like this. He showed some promise early in his career, breaking his maiden in only his 2nd start, and then he ran 3rd to Dennis's Moment in the Iroquois at Churchill. I mean, you get connections, and you get a trainer, you get owners that say, wow, I got a horse that maybe he's Derby quality and so forth. He won a couple of non-graded stakes at Laurel here earlier this year, but then he just ran 6th in the Ohio Derby just 3 weeks back, and they're wheeling him back here. I think he's a field filler. He's just, again, another non-factor in this field. He's there to pick up a paycheck.
Yeah, and I think of the 3 horses that we talked about, he's shown more life than the others, but it's a big class jump. I know that he raced, as you said, in the Ohio Derby, but even the horse that won the Ohio Derby, none of the top 3 horses that come out of the Ohio Derby, and he finished 6th in that race, none of the top 3 would even be 4th choice in this race. Well, I'm sorry. The winner would be 4th choice. None of them would crack the top 3 that we have in the race right now. So to finish 6th in that field, I think he's really making a big step up. He's raced 3 times in grade 3s, 6th by 12 lengths in one of them, and 9th by 52 lengths in the other one. And the only one that he did good in the grade 3 was at the beginning of his career, the race you talked about, Dennis's Moment. But that was so long ago. I don't see them being competitive here. If you're using superfectas, I'm not saying that he can't finish on the bottom side of a super, but I don't have him in my top 3. Last horse, and I've heard people, New York traffic, NY traffic, either way, this is a horse that's going to be a major contender in this race. He's got the outside post, so there's only one way for him to go. He's going to break from the outside post. This is a horse that likes to be involved early in a race, but given that Authentic is the dominant horse coming in here, Paco Lopez can get a horse out of the gate. He's too smart to try to run with Authentic and battle him. I think he's going to sit just back off of him, off his flank, so he keeps him in reach. But as I said, not pressing Authentic. Authentic's going to get some softer fractions, and those softer fractions are going to help New York traffic have more left in the tank coming down the stretch when Dr. Post and the other horses are trying to close into what I feel will be a faster second half of the race than the first half of the race. One thing I will say with this horse, and if you've watched any of his races, and I don't know if it's just a sign of greenness, but he now has 8 lifetime starts, so he should be figuring it out. This is a horse that many times through the stretch is all over the place. And it cost him ground because, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. If you're snaking and fishtailing all over the place, you're losing momentum and losing ground. I just don't think he's as good as Authentic. Where are you?
I can see this going one. You said that you think NY Traffic is going to sit off of Authentic. I think looking at the recent works, there's a couple bullet works in there. July 12th, 59.7, and then back on July 5th, 58.6. This one fast. I think he's going to bust out of the gate, and I think they're going to try to wire this field. But I think Authentic's too good, and I think Major Fed's going to have. I think NY Traffic, if he has to
Major Fed, when they put him in. You said Major Fed.
Yes. I'm sorry, Dr. Post. Major Fed is not in this race.
I'll tell you what, Major Fed would definitely have traffic troubles again in this one.
Sorry, guys.
No problem.
So I think NY Traffic's actually going to be your pace horse in here, and I think Mike Smith's going to keep Authentic right on his hind and just follow him until he needs to make a move. Authentic has that tactical speed. I don't think NY Traffic does. I think he has one speed, go. And like Marco said, he likes to weave when he gets to that in the stretch run. He weaves because he's tiring out. He doesn't have the stamina. He's given everything he has, but the muscles aren't there. The power isn't left in him. He gave everything he had early in the race. He's going to do the same thing here. I think he holds on for the 3rd spot in here, but I could easily see in some of these other horses that we don't think belong in this race, passing him up if he can't keep it up. Paco brought him out fast in the Mount Win, and Maxfield ran him down. I think Paco's bringing him out fast here tomorrow, and I think Authentic's going to have the perfect setup to close into a really fast early pace. Use NY Traffic and your exacta, use him in your trifecta, but don't be surprised if he finishes 5th or worse in here if he doesn't have the stamina to finish this race out.
Which is exactly why, if I'm an owner, I'm going to my trainer, and saying, we don't want the lead. Let Authentic have the lead. Let us sit off the pace just behind him and let Authentic pull us into the stretch where we're not using the horse up, and maybe he'll have that little extra to get home. And if he doesn't have enough to get home and go by Authentic, which I don't think he can, I think it gives him enough to hold off the charge of Dr. Post possibly. And I am one of those owners that, I do talk to my trainer when I'm at the track. I talk to my trainer when I'm not at the track, but when I'm at the track, I will voice my opinions of what I think. And Sig can tell you, and my trainer can tell you too, because he doesn't like watching a race standing next to me, because I am riding the race for the jockey the entire race with, move now, go time, this and that. And I make my trainer very nervous, but I would be telling Paco, just sit on his hip, just play tag and let him drag you around the track. Let him do the work. But that's just me. So Sig, this isn't part of the pick for this week, but we did go in depth in here. We agree pretty much. It looks like a 3-horse race, and that's what the morning line says as well. And that 3-horse race is Authentic, Dr. Post, and NY Traffic. But I think we're both in agreement. It's Authentic's race to lose.
Agree completely.
All right, let's get to that pick 4 since we spent a lot of time. We'll run through our legs and talk about, the horses that we like on top. The first leg of the late pick 4, Saratoga, Saturday, race 8. And this is, I think, the first leg and the last leg. When you see my the way I lay out my ticket, you will definitely see that I think these are the most competitive of the races. And Sig, I went 5 deep in here for the first leg because I have some strong opinions in the middle 2, which let me go deeper. and I went 6, 9, 1, 3, 4 for my first leg, taking the 6 horse as my top choice. I was back and forth between the 6 and 9, but I like the 6 horse. I think I go back to that race in May. He was so dominant. Granted, it was, allowance optional claimer, then stepped up last time in a bigger claiming race. Didn't race as well in that one, but that was a 40 claimer. He was back down to 25 in this race. We got Jose Ortiz aboard, who has been just riding as good as his brother A-Rad, and 26% on the wins over the last 30 days for him. And we're talking about like 100 mounts, and he's winning over 1 of every 4 races. That's just insane. And near 60% hitting the board. So for a race that I feel is wide open, I'm going 5 deep, and my top choice, the 6, is 9-2. That's an $11 horse. I would be fine with that. Where are you at?
I actually found this to be one of the toughest sequences we actually handicapped for the show. And there's only one stakes race in the sequence here, but just in general, I went 3 by 3 by 3 by 4. I just couldn't find a single in here, and you guys know I like to find a single in the sequence here and then spread out around it. So in this leg, it's a $25,000 claimer. I went with the 6, Musical Heart, the 3, Creative Style, and the 9, Hammer and Ammer. Like Marco said, Jose Ortiz is jumping aboard for David Donk. He doesn't do that very often, but when they do, they win 22% of the time, and they're in the money 52% of the time. I think it's Musical Heart's race to lose, and I love the 9-2 price on him here.
Yeah, and just throwing out there one of the long shots that I put in here, I have the 1 horse third, and he finished third to the number 3 horse, who won rather easily last time out. But if you look, that was the first race back after the horse raced in March and then the shutdown. And if you go back to that race in March, that was his first race since June of last year. So although this is going to be the horse's 3rd start of the year, he had big gaps between those starts. This will be the first start on a normal schedule, racing at last one on June 19th. The fact that he finished 3rd in that race to a horse that is a favorite, one of the favorites in the race today, I think he's got a license to step up. He should be much better, and at a price, I would be very happy to see him win this first leg and give me a nice ticket, because he's probably going to go off. He's 8-1 in the morning line. I think other horses are going to get some of the action in here, and it'd be a price. So there's where I'm at on the first leg. Sig, I'll let you take the lead for the second leg. Where are you at?
Guys, race 9, an allowance optional claimer. $80,000, 4-year-olds and up, going 1 1/16 mile on the turf. First off, guys, I took a look at the forecast. We did have rain overnight. Took a couple of today's races off the turf. It looks like it's going to be beautiful tomorrow, though. The rain tonight should just soften that turf up just enough. Well, I'm sure it'll be fast and firm tomorrow. Be a great day for racing. Here I went with 3 horses. The 7, Digital Age, I have on top. 2-1, your morning line. Irad Ortiz riding for Chad Brown. The 4-year-old colt just missed in his last out by half a length, which was his first start of 2020. I like the second off a layoff angle. He hasn't won a start, though, since the Grade 2 American Turf last year at Churchill on Kentucky Derby Day. So it's been over a year since this horse won a race, but he ran tougher company. If you take a look at the past performances, he was running in Grade 1, Grade 2 stakes. There was $2 or $3 million stakes on this horse's past performances. He's going to get a lot of class relief into this field. I think he's got a great chance to win this race. I also used a 6-horse set piece. He's actually your morning line favorite, 8-5. Rosario's riding for Brad Cox. It's a European import that won his first U.S. start in an allowance at Churchill last month with Giroux up, but Giroux's off basically right now for 2 weeks with the COVID diagnosis. Rosario's going to give him an aggressive ride, and I expect this one to be charging down the stretch. The third one here I used is actually the last horse that ended up on my ticket, is the 2, Ramsey Solution. 4-1, your morning line, Tyler Gaffleone riding for Wesley Ward. lightly raced 4-year-old. This is only going to be the sixth lifetime start. This horse has hit the exacta in 4 of his 5 lifetime starts, 3 of those being wins. I'm not letting Wesley Ward knock me off on this ticket and coming in and doing what they do. They show up, they win races. When he brings a horse in, that horse is ready to go. It's going to be tough for him to be a pacer to hold up the other 2, but there is a chance of it, so I'm using Ramsey Solution here as my 3rd choice in race 9.
I agree with you on your top 3 horses. I have the top 2 reversed. I have the 6 on top, the 7 second. I do have the 2 third, but however, for my ticket, Sig, I'm only going too deep. I agree with everything you said about Ramsey Solution, and Wesley Ward had a great meet at Keeneland. Also, talk about a hot jock. Tyler Gaffalone has really been racing very, very well. And, if a horse is going to pull upset in this race, it will be the 2. But I think the 6 and 7 are just a notch above right now. And just so impressed with the race that the 6 ran last time off of the long layoff. Hadn't raced since November, and to come back and race and win as easily as he did in that race. And really, as you said with the jockey switch, I think this is an upgrade. Rosario on turf. I like that. I put the 6 on top. I got the 7 second, and I'm going too deep here because I did go 5 deep in the first one. I narrowed it down in the second leg. So 6-7 for me. Going to the 10th race, this is another one, Sig, where I've got a strong opinion. I'm going too deep. I think we're going to be pretty much on the same pattern here with the top 2, but you went 3 deep. For me, it's 6-1, and then I have the 5-horse third. But again, I'm making it too deep, and I'm looking at the 6 in this race. You look at the 6, Paris Lights. This is a horse, 3 starts, career-wise. We talk about that big jump. Well, only 3 lifetime starts. This horse has every license to improve, and you look at what the horse is doing. 2 back, first start of the season. I should say second. That was second start of the season. Raced in April at Gulfstream, then went to Churchill Downs. Put up a big speed figure in that race, winning maiden special weight by 6 3/4 lengths, and then come back in an allowance race, facing winners for the first time, and drew off. Although the speed figure, I don't know if the track was dead that day or not. You were covering Churchill more than me, but the speed figure was way slower than the start 2 back, but he did it against tougher company and won in command. I just like, the connections here. Just talked about the hot jock. Bill Mott's been having a good month. I think this is the horse to beat. Second choice is the 1 for me, Tonalist Shape. How do you see it?
Actually, guys, when I look at the overnights, because when they draw the fields, the PPs the past performances aren't created yet, but you can see what horses are entered in the field. I thought I had a single here in the 1, Tonalist Shape. Winner of 6 of 7 career starts. Her only bad career start was at Gulfstream Park, in the Gulfstream Park Oaks, when she didn't have her best trip, and she lost to the best 3-year-old in the country currently, in Swiss Skydiver. They're adding blinkers today, which is a 27% angle for Safi Joseph, who's the trainer. And I originally, like I said, thought about singling Tonalist Shape, but as I took a deeper dive into these past performances, I really do like Marco's 6, Paris Light, 2-1 your morning line. Unraced as a 2-year-old. She's rattled off those back-to-back wins. She's well bred, too, for the distance that they're going here. The sire's Curlin, the dam sire's Bernardini. No question about the distance in her. I think Tyler's going to rate her and sit up just off the pace, making his move going home. Finally, I did use the 5, Crystal Ball, in here. Castellano is riding for Bob Baffert. It's an ambitious move by Baffert to bring this horse from California out for this race here. She only broke her maiden last month over the Santa Anita surface. She had a really fast work over the Santa Anita surface 2 weeks ago, and it leads me to believe this one could be a factor in here. They're not going to ship the horse across the country if they don't think she has a chance to compete. The other interesting thing about Crystal Ball is this is Castellano's first ride for Baffert in more than a year. So, I didn't go back to look at the stats to see how often he had ridden for him before that. But the fact that Castellano's riding for Baffert, I know the Saratoga jockey colony small because of the COVID restrictions and so forth, but just interesting that he's taking the ride on here. I'm not going to let this 5 beat me and show up and have a huge day.
That is my third choice in the race as well. 2, Tonalist Shape. You mentioned blinkers on, pure and simple. They've got the rail. They don't want to get pinned way down at the rail. I think the blinkers are on to fire this horse up out of the gate and try to hold position is why you're seeing the blinkers there. So I'm going 6-1, 2 deep. You're going 3 deep with the 1, 6, and 5. And Sig, as we go to the last leg, we're going to have to roll through the last leg. We're coming up on time here. And I'm 5 deep, so I'm not going to talk a lot about this one because I think it's a wide open race. I'm going 4, 7, 10, 3, 2. The 4 horse is the horse to beat on paper, in my opinion. First off, the layoff, raced back in March, come back on June 5th. Tried to take the field wire to wire and finished 4th, but beat for the whole race by just a head. Raced a really game effort. You've got to figure the horse to be tighter second start back, and that's why I put this one on top. But this is a wide open field, in my opinion. I gave 5 horses have a shot in here, in my opinion. How do you see it, Sig?
I went 4 deep here. I had the year 4 on top with the 7, 9, and 10. Just a quick note, the 7 horse, Papa Luke, is 4-1 your morning line. Papa Luke, the 7 horse, should have won his last start as well, just like Midnight Whiskey, our top choice. He's coming back quickly, though, on 3 weeks. I think that's a good sign. Has some nice work tabs. Needs to build a little more stamina. This being his 3rd career start, I think he has a good chance to win this race here as well. My ticket ended up being 6-3-9 with 7-6-2, with 1-6-5, 4-7, 9-10. That's a $54 ticket at 50 cents.
All right. My ticket price, very similar. Race 8, 6-9-1-3-4. Race 9, 6-7. Race 10, 6-1. Race 11, 4-7-10-3-2. That ticket will cost you $50. So good luck to everybody this weekend. Hopefully Sig and I can keep this pick 4 run going since we switched to the summer meet. 4-3 with the tally here. I still have Sig by 1. Yes, he crushed me in the spring meet, but we're in the summer meet. What I like is that we're both cashing tickets right now, so that's great for our viewers, making some money. It pays to watch the show, we tell you that. And be sure to check out Sig's sheets for the weekend. I'll have a sheet up tomorrow covering some of the biggest races across the country. Make some money this weekend. See you guys in the winner's circle. Don't forget, Monday through Friday, noon and 3 Eastern. Check out the live shows at Wager Talk TV. For Sig Las Vegas, for myself, Marco in Vegas, follow us on Twitter. Our great producer who is sitting there waiting for me to wrap up the show, the Prez north of the border. Till next week, guys, let's cash some tickets. This has been the Pony Pundits Show for Friday, July 17th.